see myself simply as a musician, a sound creator. Being a musician is this never-ending journey of discovery. This was the start of an exploration that really allowed me to take the hearing aids off and use the body as a huge ear. I love collecting instruments. I've been doing this for so long and I still get really excited about it. Well, I moved to this house about 20 years ago, and I was living in London about 10 years prior to that. And of course, my collection of instruments was growing and growing, and I couldn't actually afford to live in London. And so the whole operation of functioning as a solo percussionist was really quite tedious. I just really liked the character of the house, but also this is a really quiet environment. So it's a great contrast to my work, which is often in busy cities and towns and things like that. It's a great kind of creative environment to be in. You can see that this new addition to the instrument collection is something quite special. This is called an array imbira. And I've got to work out how to play this. So that's the fun thing about percussion, is that there's always something, you know, amazing to explore, but it's just... is where, you know, a lot of the physical creativity as the musician happens. And, you know, there I'm the percussionist, I'm the musician, I'm the sound creator, you know. So it's a very creative place to be. Well, this is the studio. This is where it all happens, all the hard work and the exploration, the creativity, the experimenting, all sorts of things. There's one piece that I'm preparing at the moment that uses marimba and vibraphone and a kind of multi-setup, but it also uses lots of chimes and bits and pieces that I haven't set up, partly because of room.
Are you a bit of a collector?
I love collecting instruments, so you can see that even on the windowsills, you know, I've got instruments kind of stacked between the two windows. You know, anything is relevant to what I do. So it isn't just about having a very nice, beautiful marimba or an expensive piano or the best snare drum or something like that. You know, something like a little music box might be really meaningful. So I'm always on the lookout for objects. If we go over in this direction, this is my little cupboard here, because of course things like sticks and mallets are so important to explore, and I've got to be organised. So in here, you can see is just a minefield of lots of different sticks. It may look disorganised, but actually I know exactly which tool I want to experiment with. The piece that I'm preparing at the moment, View from Olympus by John Sathis, is to be performed in New Zealand, actually. The pianist and myself will meet up for the first time, and hopefully the chemistry will be good, and then come together with the orchestra thereafter. What I'm trying to achieve here is, first of all, to detect whether these mallets are right for the piece. But in order for me to do that, I have to imagine the type of hall that I'll be playing this piece in. So I know the hall is going to be extremely reverberant. So I'm actually using particularly hard sticks. But also I want to see if I can create some dead strokes, so non-resonant type strokes, in order to get the clarity when I am in a wet acoustic. So although I'm actually practicing here within my four walls, in my head, I actually have the venue, the auditorium, that will actually be my main instrument that I paint sound on. I was born on a farm just north of Aberdeen with two brothers, older brothers. It was an idyllic childhood. And you can imagine we experienced the seasons, a lot of outdoor activities. And I remember in the farmhouse we had a piano that was more of an ornament than an instrument, I think. But it was enough to fuel the interest of an infant. And of course I would just, try to climb on the stool and go bang, 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 bang. So that was really the beginning of the musical experience. My father, before myself and my two brothers were born, used to play in a dance band. He played the accordion. But he never played it in front of us at all, and I used to pester him to play, but he wouldn't do that, so we never had the experience of seeing him perform. My mother, on the other hand, she could read music, and she played in the local church each Sunday, but she wasn't really musical as such. But nevertheless, once they realised my interest in music, they really encouraged that as much as possible. I remember when I was 12 years old and I went to Ellen Academy, which is a big secondary school, and I saw the school orchestra play, and I was completely inspired, and I thought, I want to be part of that. And I looked around and I thought, maybe not strings, not winds, not brass, but percussion looks quite interesting. So I asked to have lessons. And I just simply discovered that the chemistry between myself and percussion was really, really good. I began losing my hearing from the age of 8, and it was all very, very gradual indeed. And we discovered that the nerves in the ears were deteriorating. But of course, when you're that age, you don't think you're actually losing your hearing or becoming deaf or something. The body just completely adapts. It finds other routes to deal with things. And when I was about 11, 12 years old, I then was kitted out with hearing aids. But of course, at the time, I thought everything needed to be louder. And as a musician, of course, when you're striving to hear something through the ear and you think that volume is the answer, you lose your sense of touch, your sensitivity, you lose your balance, you lose any kind of sense of teamwork. Until eventually my percussion teacher, he thought to himself, well, hold on a second, these instruments that we play really resonate. They really resonate, they vibrate. So if those drums vibrate, can the human body also vibrate? Can it perceive vibration if we pay attention? This was the start of an exploration that really allowed me to take the hearing aids off and use the body as a huge ear. For me to be in crowds, for example, is extremely difficult and extremely tiring and quite confusing as well, because you've got no sort of realisation where the sound is coming from. When I'm with an orchestra, however, if I'm a soloist with an orchestra, you might think, well, that's the same kind of thing. The difference is that you've learnt the music from the full score. So you're expecting the trumpets to play there or the basses to play there or whatever it is. So that's all worked out beforehand. When I communicate with my fellow colleagues, it's mainly through email, through text, through Skype. You know, everything is visually done.
So are you lip reading me just now, or?
Yes, it's a combination. I mean, because I'm now familiar with you and I'm expecting you to speak, that I'm expecting to hear something as well. But it's all down to lip reading and being familiar with the type of sound that you produce. I think it's in my nature to be a fairly focused, driven person. For as long as I can remember, I've been like that. And I think that the only time that I felt the hearing aspect was something that drove me was when I had an issue getting into the Royal Academy of Music.
Evelyn Glennie from Aberdeen, she's 18, is a second-year student who, logically, shouldn't have been here in the first place. She was even advised not to apply.
When her form actually arrived, it was taken right to the top, to the principal, and here's a girl wanting to come to the academy who's actually deaf. And we had, I think, what can only be described as a row over this, because there was a feeling that, you know, it really wouldn't be responsible actually to even take her here, because she would not be able to make a career as a musician because she was deaf. I felt very strongly, and I know lots of my other colleagues did, that we should at least hear her play, meet her, and see whether she could fit in.
All I ever asked for was a chance to prove that I could be a musician. When the letter came from the Royal Academy of Music, it was certainly the happiest day of my life. And it meant that I could play music 24 hours a day. That's all I ever wanted to do.
When I started percussion and during my teens, I wanted to be the best percussion player I could possibly be. And I felt, well, I had to practice many hours a day and, you know, delve into as many different styles as possible. And I realized that that was just like throwing yourself into a whirlpool. It was never ending. And in my 20s, I wanted to be as good a musician as I possibly could be.
My final guest would be remarkable by any musical standards anyway. At 18, she received the highest award of the Royal Academy of Music, Her Majesty's Commendation for All-Round Excellence. The year before, she won the Shell LSO Scholarship for Timpani and Percussion. She's an accomplished pianist, and she's been hailed as one of the Royal Academy's outstanding students of all time. And since the age of 12, she's been profoundly deaf. And we'll talk in a moment, but first, Maple Leaf Rag is played on the xylophone by the brilliant Evelyn Glennie. Did you learn any music before you lost your hearing? Do you know what music sounds like?
Sure. I began the piano when I was 8 and percussion when I was 12, and I'm 20 now, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll stop telling people my age when I'm 21.
Yeah.
But
I stopped about then as well. I stopped doing it about then as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that must have been a good while ago.
Yeah.
I don't have a main instrument. My choice as a solo percussionist was to be a multi-percussion player. So really my philosophy is that whichever instrument is in front of me, that's my favourite instrument. If I'm striking a cymbal, that's my favourite. If I'm striking a conga, that's my favourite. If it's marimba, and so on. And likewise with the pieces of music, whichever piece is in front of me, I feel that's the greatest piece of music ever written. If I look back in my career, it's often hard to pick out certain concerts that are pivotal because, you know, a career is built on building blocks, it really is. But repertoire-wise, it's slightly easier to pick the repertoire. And I think for me, one piece in particular, Veni Veni Emmanuel by James